A few months later, Patty started to look skinnier. I first thought she wasn't eating due to her depression on losing her granny, and my other thought was maybe her sight was going, thinking that her food bowl was always empty. I basically pushed her face to her food bowl to prove to her there was food in her dish one time, and she only ate a little bit. I understand that was wrong of me to do, shove her face in her food dish like that, but I didn't want her to starve herself. Patty had appeared to be sleeping a lot too. When she was awake one time, on the last week of June of 2010, she sat in front of the doors that had led outside onto the patio deck. She acted like she wanted to go out on her leash and was seeing things. I stopped what I was doing at that moment, working on my laptop at the kitchen table, and told her she was making too much noise and I would take her out later. I don't know actually what Patty could have been seeing out there. A squirrel, a bird, another animal. What if it was the souls of her expired sisters and brothers that died as kittens running around out there, and she could only see them? When Patty was a kitten in 1994, she was born in a complex house that belonged to my sister's friend Brenda. Brenda had a neighbor living above her that had Patty and her siblings. Patty's mommy gave birth to her and her siblings in a small bathroom, which was closed up for a few months. This is why her siblings and Patty got really sick. My sister is the one that took care of Patty the best, since she had watched Patty be born and held Patty in the palm of her hand. I still remember to this day how my sister had explained to me that Patty was such a tiny thing. When Mom, my sister, and I went to Brenda's place to pick Patty up, I was looking at her other siblings. One of them sat in front of me and meowed, looking up at me. He or she were acting like they were saying, "Please take me home." We could only take Patty. I guess my sister fell in love with her since birth and couldn't take her eyes off her. If I would have suggested another kitten, I was thinking that Mom would be against it. That's why I had kept my mouth shut about that kitten that meowed at me that one day. I never hated kittens or cats. I loved them ever since my childhood. The thing is, I didn't know how much Patty would be loved and cared for from me too. After my sister moved out and lived with her boyfriend, Shane, she adopted a Sheltie puppy in February of 2008. They came with the puppy to my house once to show him off. I was sick with a 24-hour flu bug, but I did not know that until later. I first thought it was just a sinus infection that I always get from time to time. Anyway, they named the puppy Xander after Xander Harris on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which Sarah Michelle Gellar has starred in. Xander was her first favorite character on that television show, and Riley Finn was her second favorite. That's why when Xander fathered about 6 babies, I think it was 6, but can't recall, my sister and Shane only decided to take one of Xander's kids. They chose another boy and named him Riley. So one time in 2009, before Mom got sicker, weaker, and expired, Patty was walking around with an invisible question mark on her face. This is why I said to her, "Don't worry, Patty. I'll be your new mommy." She must have been wondering, where did Mommy go? And why did she get a dog? I hate dogs. Patty was happy that I became her new mommy. Patty was nothing but skin and bones by the last week of June of 2010. I remember picking her up, holding her in my arms, noticing she was light as a feather. On Sunday, June 27th, 2010, Dad took me to Blockbuster Video to rent some DVDs. When we got back home, he asked me to clean up Patty's litter box. So I went down to the basement, grabbed the shovel to clean out the box with, looked in her box, and found it completely empty. I first wondered if Dad himself cleaned it up, forgetting about it, possibly going senile. I went back upstairs and watched my rentals. Wednesday, June 30th, 2010 was a really hot, muggy day. All I was doing was laying around upstairs in my sister's room, relaxing on her bed, and Patty resting by my feet. It was the heat that was making me feel tired and lazy. He would do anything in this kind of heat. With my arm over my eyes to keep the sun out of my face, I felt Patty get up from her sleeping position and walk her way up to my face. "Meow," she said right next to my face. I was about to shove her out of my way, telling her I was too hot and didn't want to be bothered, but I held back doing that and moved my arm off my eyes. I looked at her. For all the years I've known her, I still thought of her as a small kitten we brought home that summer day in 1994. Even though she was old, she didn't act old. In other words, I couldn't say no to that meow or her face. I scooped her up in my arms and gave her a few hugs and kisses. She didn't fight it either, as she always had done when she was younger. After I gave her my affection, I put her back down on the floor. The next morning of Thursday, July 1st, 2010, Dad's voice had awoke me earlier than I had expected to wake. I usually wake up at around 11 or 12 in the afternoon, but on that day he woke up around 9. He woke me up at around 9 that morning. "Nora, there's something wrong with Patty. She's not moving. I think she's dead," Dad called from downstairs in the kitchen. When I got out of bed and went downstairs, halfway down the basement near my brother's room, Patty lay there motionless. I went on my knees and poked her on her stomach. Only dead air came out of her in puff, puff, puff sounds. And when I poked her, I tapped on her head and her jaw moved, but her eyes never blinked. It was true. She was dead. Dad and I didn't know how long she was laying there like that. I found that the floor had small amounts of wetness and little cat food chunks near Patty's dead body. Her nose that once was the color pink was then the color blue. I loved that little pink nose of hers, and seeing it blue then broke my heart. I spoke to her thinking that her spirit was watching me and listening from above, floating above my head. Your birthday was only a couple weeks away, honey, and I was going to surprise you with tuna. July 22nd was her birthday. When I said that, I imagined her spirit saying to itself loudly, "Oh, shit, I should have stayed." I gave her a stroke on her forehead, also kissing her there. Dad had to pick her off the carpet and found a big shoebox for her. We put her in the shoebox, and I took a video of what she looked like in order to show my brother and sister. Patty was close to 16 years old when she died. I was hoping she'd lived longer than Benny had, Grandpa Ray's brown tabby kitty, who died at the age of 18 and a half years old. Heck, I was hoping she'd live to be 20. A few times before going to bed, I would say to her, wishing for her to stay with me for that long, and her eyes would grow big as though saying to me, "Me? Here for that long? Endured by your hugs and kisses and belly rubbings? I don't think so." So, I guess you can't wish for anything anymore when it comes to an animal, which is, of course, pretty sad. After burying her in the backyard, I called the vet and told them about Patty's passing. After the vet, I called my sister. When I told her, she didn't believe me at first. "What?" she asked, and I repeated myself, and she said, "How? What happened?" She was to the point of tears, and I could tell even though we were on the phone with each other. I told her everything. Maybe she thought that Patty ran out and got hit by a car or something at first. I really don't know. I did let her know I videotaped the burial. Excuse me, my tongue. I videotaped the burial and how she was found dead in order for her to see for herself when she comes home next. I cried most of the afternoon thinking how unfair Patty's death was, even though she was close to 16 years of age. I think of her as a daughter, so in a way I had buried my child in my backyard. I did show my brother and sister the video I made of Patty's burial. Near the end of the video, I had put together pictures of Patty, and they really loved that. I still miss Patty every day. I talk to her like how I talk and think of Mom. It's strange, though, when I say this, but I miss Patty more than I do Mom. Mom, I grieved more when she was sick and dying, but after she died, I knew she wasn't in pain anymore and healthy again. So why grieve for Mom when she's no longer in pain? Patty was my beautiful, loving kitty. I loved her little pink nose and her big green eyes. That's how the way she spoke to me and anybody else. Someone would say hello to her, and she would respond by a squawk. When I was cooking something, she would put her front paws on the countertop, sniff the air as though saying, "Smells good, Mommy." The most favorite thing about Patty I loved was how I gave her kisses on her nose, and then she would squawk and lick me back. Not just once. She licked me back on my nose, but almost 10 times. As I stated earlier, Patty grieved for her granny's death more than I did. So I am guessing that since she missed her granny, she couldn't live anymore either. I was told stories like this before. Example, a married couple who had been married, had children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. One of the spouses dies, and then the other spouse dies a few months or a year later. Maybe the same thing goes for animals who love their people a lot too. A few weeks before July 22nd, 2010, I created a Facebook event. It was my first time creating one, and I didn't know how to get the news to my friends. Where do I go to select them to view the event is what confused me. This is why I made the privacy as public. I called the event Honoring Patty and posted a picture to it. I can't recall everything I had said in the event, but it went something like this. For those that loved Patty and seeing her on my videos, please eat some tuna for sandwiches in honor of her. That day is her birthday. She would have been 16. I had a few responses from my friends saying that they would have some tuna on that day and take pictures of them eating the tuna, proving that they celebrated Patty's birthday. A few days later, I had a phone call. "Did you kill your cat Patty from hugging her too tight?" Yep, another prank call. Why would somebody think I would kill my own cat? A cat that had been so sweet to me, a cat that I thought of as a child. Seriously, people need to grow up. End of chapter 3.